Hey, everybody, this is the PodcASSt podcast, and I am your host, Ass Craig. This is episode 4, and in this episode, I get to introduce all of you to John Crotts. He's a guy that I've gotten to know and have become friends with over the years through J&P Cycles. John is the store manager of the Daytona location, which is not only a beautiful retail location just off of Interstate 95, but also the home of the call center for J&P Cycles. We're going to learn more about John here, and my hope with this episode is not only to share his story with you, but to find out more about what happens behind the scenes when it comes to these, quote, big events that we get to work and share with you through our social media posts. John was born to Larry and Mary Crotts on the George Air Force Base in Victorville, California in 1970. He is the youngest of two with two brothers, Robert, David, and a sister, Kim. John's father, Larry, was a decorated Vietnam-era fighter pilot whose most notable flights were in an F-105 Wild Weasel that flew over 100 missions in the war. Mary, John's mom, had the maiden name of Christmas, making her maiden name Merry Christmas up until the day of her wedding in 1959. However, the Christmas name does live on with John's cousins Ginger, Holly, and Noel Christmas. John has been married for 28 years to his wife, Shannon. They have one son, Austin, who currently serves in the U.S. Navy. John learned to fly many years ago, but gave it up when health concerns made it more difficult to maintain his flight medical card. For the past 30 years, John has worked in retail, with the last 15 being in the automotive and motorcycle industries. When he's not working, you'll find him either hanging out on the beach, golfing, or running around with one of the toys in his garage. The toys in that garage? He's got a 1985 Honda XL 600R to play off-road, along with a 2008 Road King he uses on the road. For his other toys, he drives a 2016 Mustang Shelby Cobra GT350 and a Jeep Gladiator. All fitting hobbies and vehicles for a guy that lives in Florida. What I need to do now is get this guy involved in the conversation, so I would like to take this opportunity to introduce all of you to John Crotts. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, Craig. Thank you for having me. Hope you're doing all right.
I'm doing better now. I understand you're coming off of an ailment.
And we won't talk about it because I think the whole world's tired of hearing about it.
Well, that's probably true. We're sick of it, but now you're really, really sick of it. But
that's really sick of it, yes.
On the mend. And I'm glad to hear you're on the mend. I got to suffer with that for about the last week and a half too, but it's all good now, right?
It's all
Look
good.
Out, world.
That's right.
Because here we come. That's cool. So this is the 4th recording of the podcast. So I have to say thank you for joining me to learn the struggles as we figure this thing out. We had a few struggles right off the bat this morning trying to get connected. You're the first non-iPhone user that I've had, and that you're forcing me to learn new things. So thank you.
Not a problem.
Going back to the beginning of the bio that I sent, or you sent me, I should say, you were born on a military base. How long did you live on the military base?
Well, lived on or next to a military base. Yeah, on or next to a military base, probably till in utilizing the military bases all the way up through high school, but actually on the bases more to the mid 70s.
Okay, so on the bases you were pretty young, probably before a lot of memories, but being near the base.
Yep. And then being that my father was in the position he was in, there was a lot of hoopla. It was always surrounding that as well, because when he wasn't serving in the war, he was either flying air shows or personal representative for the armed forces.
Oh, that is awesome. What was that like, growing up in that environment? That's something that I can say I have no idea what that would be like.
Well, for me, it was normal. I mean, every kid likes to think that no matter where he goes, everybody wants to salute his dad. But I thought that was normal for me. And then in to think that somebody who, he was a world record setter, he just kind of did so many crazy things, but in real life, he was probably one of the most low-key, easygoing, chill guys you've ever met. It's just amazing how they just turn it on and off.
Sure. And you know, I suppose to him that was just normal too. It was
Yeah.
just, yeah, no big deal. What you say he's a world record setter? What's that?
He had a couple of time and distance records. He set crossing the Atlantic Ocean in a single seat fighter jet, which actually this day I think one of those records may actually still hold. Don't know for sure. There was no reason for anybody to try to break it.
Huh. What was it? Can you say what the record was?
I don't remember the exact details, but it was crossing the Atlantic. I don't know what the time was. I don't know what the speeds were. I just know that at the time that they did it, it was kind of a proof of concept. These were early fighter jets. They were setting records for. It was probably more propaganda than anything because back then he was in an F-100, which was the first military fighter jet that could do speed of the sound in straight and level fight. So once they started breaking those records, there was no need. Now it wasn't like Chuck Yeager, any of those guys trying to break sound barriers. Those have all been done. So
Sure. That is cool. So I'm looking at, I pulled up on my screen one of those fighter jets. And
mhm.
yeah, you say it's one of the first. I think to me they all look the same. I'm sure they're not. If I pull up a current one, it's not even close. But I'm like, I've seen them in Top Gun, and I've seen them flying around, you know, locally at shows and stuff. But to me, it looks like a normal one. But to be one of the first ones, that is really cool. And to set
Yeah,
records is amazing. I did not know that.
yeah,
So I know we've talked about this stuff in person through the years, but I didn't realize that he was a world record holder. So that's cool.
yeah.
I guess so. Let's on the topic of your dad. What would be like your favorite story of dad?
Oh man, there's just so many. I think some of my favorite stories are whenever he was younger. He started learning to fly when he was only 13 years old, and he was. I don't want to say he was parentless, but his parents were absent a lot, so he would lean to the airport down the street from him to learn to get help with the studies, with math and sciences and things like that. So some of the early stories of them flying, the FAA was relatively new back in the days. They were doing aerobatic when they were 14, 15 years old, breaking every rule under the sun, but nobody knew how to enforce. So just knowing that whenever he was a kid, he liked to live life on the edge, and I think that's the reason why I did growing up. I had two older brothers that I always wanted to keep up with, and in order to do that, you just had to always push yourself to be a little bit better than you thought you were, and a little bit better than you actually were, which comes up to bite you in the butt. And I know you and I've talked. You grew up on dirt bikes. I grew up on dirt bikes, and you know how it is when you're with the guys. Everybody's who's going to do it first and who's going to do it best. Well, there always had to be that one of us, and I think that's what we took after my dad. My brother's the same way.
I understand that a lot. I'm sure most of our listeners are going to understand that same idea as well. It's funny when you talk about that. I think of the days at the old gravel pit. Did you guys have because we're similar in age? Did you have a video camera? So you'd be out videotaping some of this stuff at the gravel pits?
We had video cameras, but none of us were smart enough to use them. So, I had a cousin who was real good at using a video camera, but most of the places we went, we didn't have gravel pits where I were, but we had landfills, which would have been the
Okay.
equivalent.
Yep.
So we'd go to the landfills, and we had to go travel as light as possible because you weren't supposed to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So you're always ready at a minute's notice to hightail it out of there. So most of what we have is just now become just pass me down stories of between my friends and I and my brothers, seeing what we've done and just we got the scars to tell the story.
Right. And isn't it funny how when you talk to your friends, how much faster you are than they were?
Oh yeah. Where were you guys? I left you.
I remember this is so fresh in my mind right now because I was just my ex-wife's sister is putting all these old videos to digital and then sending them to me. And you'll relate to this. So when we'd go to the gravel pit, it was you and your group of buddies, and then you found that one random pile of something that looked like it might possibly in some way, shape, or form be a jump. And then you and all your friends, right, would get around this thing, and then everybody would take turns hitting it, and everyone had to be watching just in case that one time somebody actually did something cool. Everybody got to see it, right? You remember
Exactly.
those?
Absolutely. In fact, I spent a day, about 3 weeks in a hospital because of one of those jumps. But it was going to be conquered before the day was over.
And you were in the hospital because you did it bigger and better than all of your friends, not
Well,
because you screwed it up.
and it's what's funny is what you never came up short. What hurt was coming in long because you were never going to be the guy who missed it. You were going to make it, and that's where we always got burned is a little bit too much throttle.
Yep.
So, but I'd rather go out that way than to pile in at short. So
Right. Yeah, because falling short was just an embarrassment.
right now you're embarrassed and hurt.
Right. That's funny. So you picked that up from your dad, as I'm sure we all did. He passed away a couple
He
years
passed,
ago.
yeah, 2019.
Okay. Mom's still alive, right?
She is.
And where is she at?
She's in North Carolina. That's where most of my family. That's what we call home is North Carolina. And I did have to add one thing to Merry Christmas. Her first name is spelled Mery.
Yes, I had to
So
double check that, which I think is
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. And one thing I didn't tell you, Craig, and I don't know why I didn't tell you this, but in 1957. No, it was 57 or 58. She was on a television show called I've Got a Secret, which was, a big deal back in the time because that was her name. So yeah, she became a little celebrity growing up in the small town of Shelby, North Carolina, where we're from, where my family's from. But she's back up near there now in North Carolina with my sister and my oldest brother up close to them.
That's cool. So do you have a copy of that show? Have you found it?
It's actually I found it. We had it loaded up, so it's available on YouTube. Anybody that wants to go watch it, just type in "Merry Christmas, I've Got a Secret" or "Merry Christmas, IGAS," and it'll pull her up. She was 17 years old whenever she did that video, and it just blows me away at how mature women just in general looked. You look at a 17-year-old today and you look at a 17-year-old from back in the 50s and they look like mothers back in the 1950s. Well, it was my mother, just at 17
Right,
years
yeah.
old.
I'm going to look that up.
Yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
interesting. Yeah, it's about a 15-minute watch, but it's worth it. And you got to listen to it because she does talk about being married to she was engaged to my dad at the time.
Okay.
And they talk, Gary Moore, who is the host, talks a lot to my mom about, well, is it hard for him to call you? Because back then, everything was like a collect call. I'm calling for, Merry Christmas. And it was a real thing. They laughed about it, but a lot of times operators would not put the call together because they thought it was a prank. They thought he was joking.
Oh, sure.
So to hear little things about their life whenever they were young and getting married and when she was still a Merry Christmas, but and she was real big with March of Dimes. She was one of their cover girls for their propaganda, their advertisements during, back in those days in the 50s. So it's really interesting.
Those stories I bet are they still shared at family gatherings? I would hope.
Oh yeah, talk about them all the time, and with the world of Facebook and social media today, so every year on her birthday at Christmas, we'll see these videos start popping up, and they'll go viral for a few days. Family spreading them out, and it's also interesting to be able to see the feedback that comes from people that she grew up with, going, man, I grew up with her, and people are just proud to say, yeah, she was in my class, and I'm like, well, that's my mom. She's tough. This is a woman who grew up around the world, lived in Tripoli, Libya, raising kids and getting drug all over the place with the U.S. Air Force. And
That's cool.
She held it together.
Well, she's still alive, so thank her. Obviously, we thank your father for her service. Your mom is the hero that had to put up with it and take care of you guys, like you said. And now your son, Austin. So
yeah.
The family's in there. You were not. I'll let you tell us why. But as a family, I'm sure I'm one of many that would like to thank and show my appreciation for your entire family and their dedication to the service. So you didn't make it.
Nope. Well, that goes back to that jump.
Yep.
No, through high school, I was in ROTC. I had a plan to go. My ultimate goal was to join the Air Force, or to serve in the military in one way, shape, or form. Both my brothers served. My father served. Both my grandfathers served. My uncle, every male in my family pretty much served in the military. But that wreck had did a lot of damage to me, enough that Uncle Sam says, you know what, you've already been beat up pretty bad. We'll let you slide on this one. So, but fortunately, my son, when he graduated high school, he's always been academically gifted. He was an athlete, a scholar, a musician. And when he wanted to choose something, he ended up getting into the Navy nuclear power program, where he's been for a little over 6 years now. He's stationed in San Diego, and and he's a gearhead as well. He decided not to go for the speed, but he's into the rock crawling, the rock bouncing. They go out to Johnson Valley out in California. In fact, they're going to be there this weekend, here in January, when they're headed out there. But that's what they love to do. They like to break things, fix it, make it better, and break it again, fix it, and make it even better. So I'm proud of them. There's a lot of things your kids could be doing. I don't know too many people that are upset that their kids, fall into some kind of a motorsport like that, where they can learn something, build camaraderie, like the motorcycle business. I mean, we've probably spent more time helping other people fix their projects than we have fixing our own projects, just so we can all ride together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's about. It is a camaraderie, and I've seen that, my personal life, just as the rider, I've seen it, in the motorcycle industry. Even with us, Craig, whenever you come out and visit us twice a year, it's like a family reunion. Your brand, who's just kind of claimed a piece of that pie. There's several, and it's just exciting to be around.
It is. I can attest to all of it. The support that this industry shows each other is unreal.
Yep.
How and I'm the rock crawling community, those guys are all the same thing, but how often does your son get home? Does he get back to see you? Do you get out to see him?
Well, used to, we'd see him a couple of times a year, but after COVID kind of took hold, the military kind of restricted the travel. So when he had opportunities to come, they would just pull the wool out of the carpet. Being that we're here in Florida and he's in California, we're polar opposite states, for a lot of things. So, people in California are like, no, you can't go to Florida. The people in Florida are like, yeah, well, keep California out there. We'll keep Florida here. So it just kind of made it difficult for him to travel. But I'm hoping that this next year is going to be a little different.
Yeah. So my daughter, you remember this, she moved over to Sweden for a couple of years. Yeah. So the difference between your mom and your dad, right, having to communicate, make those phone calls, how thankful are you now for like Zoom and FaceTime and all these things, right? We don't have it that bad.
Oh, it's amazing. So today, my son, I might talk to him 4 or 5 times a day, whether it be a phone call, text, like you said, some kind of FaceTime or Zoom, or he's a second away. So I talk to my son more now. In fact, when he was deployed and he was in the South China Sea, I spoke to him. He's calling me, or he's actually Facebook messaging me from a ship. I'm looking at the news. And it just so happened we had a 3 strike force carrier group in the South China Sea. Our president was over in Japan speaking, and North Korea was making some noise. They were doing a show of force, and so he sends me this text and says, "Hey, how are you doing?"
So just so the listeners know what's going on, we're really working, like we're doing our things today. So we're on the phone, and the little glitches and things that we're having. You said you had got a message, that stuff. I try to pull some of that out, but I can't get it all. So anyway, I appreciate everybody.
Well, that's okay. One of those messages is our buddy Mikkel calling me, so I'll have to call him back.
Well, let's say hi to Mikkel on the show. I won't tell you why.
Hey, Mikkel. That's great.
That's hilarious. So that being just another family member from the motorcycle industry.
That's correct.
I'd love to get one of those guys from Clockworks on the show in the future. So I'm sure I will.
Oh, I'm sure.
Let's see. We're talking about contact with your kids. One thing that I've learned about myself doing this show is my transitions suck. So like going from one thing to another, like, okay, I know what I need to work on.
Well, Craig, I've always known you as an in-person kind of guy, so your transitions are
Right.
natural to me. I don't get it.
And well, my buddy Larry, who comes down every spring, I was telling him this the other week, and I'm like, man, my transitions suck when I listen back. He goes, dude, you're going from a conversation to reading questions. And I went, oh, yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it?
It's not as natural.
No, it's odd. But so we talked about your parents. We talked about your son. Your wife. Is she a motorcycle rider, an enthusiast?
My wife is the best passenger you could ever ask for. There's been times she's discussed wanting to get her endorsement and do her own riding, but she's a social butterfly. She loves to take pictures. She can get on the back of that motorcycle and sit back there for hours. And you know how just some passengers are just, they counter turn on you. They counter lean on you. I can ride and forget she's even back there. So yeah, she loves to ride. She loves to ride. She loves the atmosphere. She'll go to all the events with me. A lot of people at work just assume a lot of customers assume she's on the payroll because she's right there with me when we do events and rides and charity work. So I love to have that, because it is something we can do as a family. I mean, I do all that on my days off usually. So whenever I can take my wife with me, it's still a day off, even though I'm kind of working.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I can relate to every piece of that conversation. Does your wife work otherwise?
Oh,
What
she
does
does.
she do?
She is a supervisor in the finance department for the city of Ormond Beach. Whenever I'm getting ready for our events like Bike Week and Biketoberfest, I have to make several trips back and forth to City Hall. So I kind of get to see her whenever I go down there.
Oh, that's awesome. But yeah, so I was gonna say, like with Renee, she'll tell you she can't stand people, but you would not know that, right? I think she just doesn't like normal people, but she likes our normal people at the event.
Yeah, so that might be the truth. We're all a bunch of odd nuts. We're definitely a mix. Maybe that's what she likes. Maybe it makes everybody feel included.
Yep, that's probably it exactly. You said in your bio also, see, this is a terrible transition because I went right to the question.
Yeah, it's all right.
You said that you fly, or you did fly.
Did
How
fly.
long did
Yeah.
you fly? What did you have a license or not?
Oh yeah, it was
Okay.
several years. But whenever I was so I only flew privately. It was never something I wanted to do for a living. It was something I kind of did. I think mostly what I did it for was because it was a connection with my dad. He
Okay.
was part of my training. He was part of my learning. It was just something that we did together. He'd go up with us. And, my dad, to the day he died, he could have probably got in anything and flew it in like he just did it yesterday. For him, flying was like riding a bike. My uncles, my cousins still fly. But I had health issues when I was 29 years old. Went through a little bit of a bout with cancer. By the time I got through everything, the red tape was just so much. I put that down. My brother, he is a commercial hot air balloon pilot, also a private fixed wing pilot. So flying's just always been in the family. But number two, if you don't have a reason to fly other than just for fun, it's an expensive hobby. And I have too many of those already, so I don't need any more.
Expensive hobbies. That Mustang, I had to look that up. I'm like, okay, you didn't say Mustang, so is this a kit car? What's the deal? And I looked up, it ain't no kit car.
No, it's not a kit car. It's and there again, it was not one of those things I was in the market for. It's one of those things that just kind of found me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm a car guy. People ask me. I did some work with GM in the past. I'm a car guy. I'm not a Ford guy. I'm not a Chevy guy. I'm not a Mopar guy. I'm a car guy.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a car that had no miles on it. It was just a beautiful car. And whenever this opportunity opened itself, I said, you know what? I will make more room in my garage. So my wife is the Jeep person. Uh,
Okay.
so I'm the guy that likes to go fast, hang on. It's amazing I'm still alive today. My wife, ever since I've known her since she was 18 years old. Uh, she wanted it to be taller, bigger tires. She doesn't care about going fast. She just cares about going wherever she wants to go. And so she's the Jeep person. I'm the car person. We both enjoy the motorcycles.
Speaking of that Jeep, when did you get that? Was that like 2 years ago?
Well, I had a Jeep before that I've had for a little over 10 years, and then 2 years
Uh-huh.
ago, about a year ago, I bought this Gladiator because I needed a pickup
Yeah.
truck. So I bought this Gladiator, and then I spent probably 2 months getting it where she wanted it. The lift kits, the tires, the steps,
Mm-hmm.
getting it all right for her.
Well, I remember when you first got it and you
Hmm.
were telling me about it. I don't remember going to see it. I remember like you were just telling me about it. And you told me about these dirt bike tracks in the front of the box, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm like, what? They have that in there? Yeah, yes. And it was like just the coolest thing. Remember?
Yep.
And
Yeah. It's got a place to put two dirt bikes in the back, and they even tell you where to put them.
yeah. And what's funny about that is my brother and his wife bought one of those Jeeps this fall, like October, September, October, November, somewhere in that. And he's telling me about it.
Right.
And meanwhile, his wife's driving it back and forth to work. And I'm like, well, does it have the dirt bike tracks in it? Like I know what I'm talking about, right? I only know because you were telling me. And
Right.
I'm like, does it have dirt bike tracks in the box? He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, the cool ones have dirt bike tire marks right in the front of the box. So you know where to put your dirt bike. He's like, well, I don't know. He didn't even know, and it does.
So now your back knows everything. but you're a car guy. You're a truck.
Not really. I'm like you. I don't know history of vehicles, and I just know vehicles are cool, and or they're not. I don't know. That's right. You would say that because I was selling cars. I didn't sell cars. I just helped people find stuff they wanted.
Sure.
Oh, that's funny. That's
But
funny. Yeah. So it was funny when he got that I was able to, you know, say something about it like I know what they are, and I'd never even seen it before yours. No, it's cool. He got it, and they really like it, and I think it's cool. Now the more I see them, when they first came out, I wasn't real excited about them, but the more I see them, the ones that are actually done up well, like your wife's is now, I think they're really cool. Coming back to the motorcycle world, give us a little history. What got you? I mean, you grew up with dirt bikes. What was your first bike?
first bike would have been a Z50. Let's see if you can remember what a Z50 is.
I
It's a
had the QA50.
basically the same bike.
So very close.
Basically the same bike. A Honda 50, 3-speed, semi-automatic. You know, just something to learn how to stay on two wheels, and then that progressed to a RM50, which
Yeah.
progressed to a KX80, progressed to a YZ125, progressed to a KX250, which was built by a gentleman named Bobby Barr, who was the bike builder for his son who raced at the time. We're going back into the mid 80s. Rodney Barr, who was a Kawasaki rider in 125s, was going to be moving up to 250s, but that was my last dirt bike until recently I acquired this old XL 600.
Hmm.
But road, I've kind of been on everything from Gixxers, GSXRs, 650, 750, 1100. Then, went to Harley and never turned back.
Cool.
I got old. I got old real young.
Does That happens to all of us.
Yeah.
The Harley, do you working in the industry, do you get to do a lot of riding?
Not as much, and I don't want to say I don't have the opportunity. It's just sometimes you just got to turn it off. Um, you know, when you work 50 plus hours a week in the motorcycle industry, sometimes you just want to shut it off. And I think that's why I'm passionate still about my cars. It's, as much as I love the motorcycles, I love the camaraderie. I'm not a big club guy. I'm not my wife and I, we take our time to ride and to Jeep and to do things together. It's so as much as I love to go out and do things, and when we do things in a group, it's usually revolves around an event, a charity, or an awareness of some type of something that we're doing. But to sit there and say, do I ride as much as I would like to now that I'm in the business? I probably don't ride as much as I could, but I'm definitely in a position where I can ride anytime I want. And working for J&P Cycles, they encourage everybody that works for them to ride as much as possible. I mean, they even have promotion or campaigns for people who ride to work. Every day you ride to work, you earn points, which you can use towards purchasing product and things like that. You can win prizes for riding to work. So it's really, it's a culture, being in J&P Cycles around the motorcycles, different walks of life. Most of my team, Craig. I mean, we are all so completely different, but we all get along so famously because the one thing we all have in common is we all love motorcycles, and we love and it's not just the love of the motorcycle, it's the culture around the motorcycle. It's the camaraderie around it. So it's not just about the bike, it's about the people.
Very much so. That's cool. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't
Yep.
know that they did that. Is that it new in the last few years? Has that been
Started doing it probably about 3 years ago. The programs have changed a little bit. We've had ownership change in the company, which has been a blessing for everybody that works in the company. So some of the things have changed. Some things have gotten better. Some things have kind of gone away because we're remolding it into something a little bit better. But what we do want everybody to know, when you come into one of our stores or you make a phone call to our company and you're talking to somebody about a motorcycle, they're not just there making a buck. These are people who live the lifestyle. They eat and breathe this. So when we know about a guy whose bike's down, he needs a part, we don't just look at it as, well, we'll try to get you a part. We look at it as, we're going to try to get you back up on the road. That's just the way it is.
That's the way it should be.
Yep.
I mean, every motorcycle shop should be that way.
Yep.
Just my opinion is,
Yeah.
I mean, we're all in this together. So that's cool. I didn't know that was, like I said, I didn't know that was a thing. That's to be incentivized to ride to work is awesome.
Yeah. And we don't do it just once a year on Ride Your Bike to Work Day. It's 365 days a year, or every day we're open.
So who rides there the most? Do you know?
Well, right now, for a long time it was Paige. Paige was always our top dog rider. She rode to work every day. Paige has been a huge advocate of Wild Ass products.
Mm-hmm.
And her husband Kevin couldn't keep up with her. So to think that the top rider is some big burly biker guy, that's not always the case. I mean, here we have a beautiful young woman who gets on her bike, whether it's 30 degrees outside or 100 degrees outside, whether it's raining or whether it's sunny. She would make her way to work. She lived on that motorcycle. So I don't know who the record holder is right now. I think one of the people that was always up there was Zach Parham, our now our CFO, but the namesake of the company, John Parham's son.
Yeah.
He's that avid rider. Now he's having to commute by airplane a lot now, so that makes it a little
right.
But yeah, there for a long time, he was one of the top dogs as well.
I didn't know if you had a scoreboard in the office or something. If you kept that, if it's like a
we did
thing.
We did, and I'm lucky now. Part of it's because we're based in Florida. Our company, we have people all over the country now, but we're based in Florida. But Harold Roosh works for me. He was always one of the top guys. Paige was one of the top girls. I got a John Lee who works for me. He's always there in the top. But being in Florida, we have the
Yeah,
weather advantage
right.
on our side. So we're not riding on icy roads to work. Now we might get wet, but and it does get cold. I mean, we've been working in the 30s and the 40s here in the past couple of weeks, but these guys still get up and do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Let's see. So let's talk more about the Florida location.
Mm-hmm.
Twice a year, you have events. And I know you don't listen to the show because you're not a podcast person. Kind of not necessarily a deal I made for the listeners, but more for myself. I don't talk. This isn't a wild ass show. Like we don't talk about wild ass all the time. What's going on? And that's kind of the deal I made with myself. Is this show's not going to be about that. It's going to be more about sharing stories of friends and people that I've met along the way. But I'm going to say right now we're going to talk about wild ass, and the reason for that is there's a very special place in my heart for J&P Cycles. When we first came to market, we did our product launch on the floor of your location, where it'll be 7 years ago, and that coincidentally was your first time as well.
Yes, I think we were both getting our cherries popped together.
Yes, we were right there on the show floor. And it was one of those deals. So I worked at the previous company, Rojo. I just don't say the Airhawk name ever,
I
but
got you.
Rojo was really the name that it was. And I worked with J&P for, I think since 2011, I've never missed a bike week. So what's that going to be? 11 years this will be. When we decided that we were going to launch Wild Ass, that was like the timing was correct and everything. I got a hold of the people at J&P and they're like, bring it down. And that was the very first place. And like I said, it just holds a very special place in my heart to be there every year and to find out that, to know that you and I are in this very first time together. Here we are 6 years later. It's super cool to me. So what I want to talk about was these events, right? I mean, these events take a ton of planning, and I just kind of wanted to get your take on this event. So let's go all the way back to the very first one. How involved were you in planning it, or was this just the first one you were at?
Yeah, so the very first event that I did, so I started in April of 2015. So we had just come out of a bike week.
Okay.
So I learned a lot about a bike week after cleaning up from a bike week, if that makes any sense.
Oh, sure.
So then, as soon as we finish cleaning up from bike week, we have to go through and do a full store inventory, recount everything, get everything cleaned up, and then we're now planning for Biketoberfest at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So my first event planning was Biketoberfest, and then coming around to bike week again. So I actually got to have hands on. Now the first event I did, it was kind of new for our company because our location had been annexed into the city of Ormond Beach. We were in the county, so everything was new at this point. The way we handled security, the way we got permits, the way we had to lay out our lot, a lot of new rules that nobody knew. I would walk next door to our neighbors and I would talk to the Rossmeyers and Tammy, who would pull their permits and try to get help from her because nobody in our company really knew how to do this. So I would set up appointments to go speak with city commissioners and planning people in the city of Ormond Beach, trying to get it figured out. And then once we got it all figured out, that's how we knew how to put the event together. Now, I also had a couple secret weapons in my arsenal. I have Bob Regisi, who is our facilities manager and supervisor. Bob, he had a black book of people to call, whether it was for septic or trash or security. So we worked together. And then the vendors, all you guys. And if you remember, when we first started, Craig, we probably had almost 50 vendors between the inside the building and outside the building. We had a lot. It was over 40, maybe 45.
Mm-hmm.
We had 45 brands on our lot. And one of the things I realized whenever the event was over was we have too many. Um, we needed to focus on quality, not quantity. Um, we looked at the brands who supported us. We looked at the brands who had higher demand, who were a little bit more cutting edge, and then we started thinning the herd out. So if a guy was sitting outside my parking lot trying to sell his product and he only had 10 feet to sell it, we'd say, you need more than 10 feet. You got too much product. You got too much demand. Let's give you 20 feet or 30 feet. We started making room to bring in, a higher quality, I guess is the better word,
Sure.
a higher demand. And we've seen pretty much over the past 7 years, just consistent and steady growth. um, we've tried to create consistency. So when you come and visit us, there's not a million questions. You just kind of, you can come and set up and you'll be done before I even know you're there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we want. We want vendors to know when they come here, you're at home. This is your house. Make yourself at home. And it provides me luxuries whenever I'm, in my store on any given day of the week outside of an event, and I have somebody comes in that has a really hard question about a product. I'm like, well, hold on, let me pick up the phone. I can probably call somebody. And I can pick up a phone and I can call Craig, or I can call Brian Clock, or I can call somebody in the industry and say, hey, let me ask you, how would you fix this? And they would give us solutions. And we've learned and we've grown from that tremendously. So I'm just proud of what we have there at Destination Daytona at J&P Cycles here, because even whenever your vendors say, this is where we want to be, we don't want to be anywhere else. There's a lot of other places you can be, but this is where they want to be. And now our customers know this is where to come because that's who they want to see. So ours doesn't change a whole lot. We don't like to throw a lot of change. When you come in, you know what you're coming in for.
Yeah. So that's mentioning that. I remember that first year, all those vendors, the place was packed. It was the very first time my son had been to an event like this.
Right.
And we literally set up, and I guess I don't know the direction. Is it the north door
That would
of
be the
the
north
show
door.
floor?
Yep, that was
Um,
the north door.
and I think we had a 6 foot table, and that's what we
Yeah,
were set up in.
yeah. And I
And
think your son was probably about what, 13 years old?
no, well, he'd have been 19,
Yeah, but he
I think.
looked like he was about
Yeah,
13 years
yeah,
old.
yeah, yeah. He definitely
Like
did not
you,
look
you
his
look
age.
you look like you're about 25.
Well, maybe when I shave. I don't know if you've been following my experiment on Facebook. That was hilarious. But we actually have a picture on our website. Um, it's actually on the main page. If you scroll down to the About Wild Ass, you'll see that very first setup with my then partner Scott and I
Right.
standing at the table, and that was 2016. That was cool.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
so
remember that so well.
yeah, it's crazy how we remember these things and
And
why,
it's
right?
funny
I mean,
because
there's so many other things going on.
I think it was Zach Parham had been the one to call me and said, "Hey, you're going to have a vendor that you don't know,"
Yep.
and he was explaining to me what it was, and when he told me what it was, I'm like, "Oh, well, this should do really well," because I knew we won't talk about other companies, but I'm like, "Yeah." So
Yeah. No, it worked out awesome. So in 7 years, you kind of summarized. I was going to ask about, some of the change, and you did. You gave more space. So our location is the same. Like where we're at, when we first moved outside, we were in a 10-foot spot, like you say. And then I think it was Ricky was right next to us, and then he moved away, and I'm like, hey, I want that spot. You're like, all right, take it. The
yep,
next year we were there, and then of course we grew a 20 foot, and I can't remember if it was by October or in March, but we're now 30 feet. We take up a lot of room.
Well, you do bring the nice looking women with you, so we have to give you prime space.
That helps, doesn't it?
It is a motorcycle rally.
Right. It does. It creates its problems, but overall, it's good. Yeah, that just prompts me to, like, there's always those creepy old guys that have to come by the booth, right?
Well, that's
And
my job. You know, I
yeah.
still got to do my job.
Fortunately, you get pulled away by work once in a while. I'm talking about the guys there on vacation that have had too many
I know.
beers.
I know.
But anyways, yeah, getting back to the topic, our space is what it is. It's always been our spot. We've claimed it. We love the fact that you're keeping us there, because that was almost a lesson that we were able to take and use at the Sturgis location, and then also at other events. Like, you know, some of these events you'd go to and you'd be in a different spot this year, you'd be in a different spot next year. And people, we would find out, they would come and look for us, not just us, any vendor.
Sure.
But they'd come and, you know, like, hey, John, here's what I got last year, and here's where they are. Wait, they must not have came this year.
Right.
Because we're right around the corner. So we don't, so that keeping that part of things the same on the lot there is great. I think it's great. I think everybody in our row would agree. And we all become friends, and we all end up working with each other too when it comes time for setup, tear down, helping with customers.
And it's interesting whenever I go by and see another vendor with their display bike in their tent, but they'll have a Wild Ass seat on it. Or I'll go by a Wild Ass, your tent, and I'll see your bike there, but it's got a Clockworks windshield on it, or it's got a Hogworks headlight, or it's got, it's just because you guys have just been neighbors so long. And there again, we don't do it once a year. We do this twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
So you're neighbors with these guys, and so everybody starts to work with each other, and you become ambassadors for each other's brand as well.
Absolutely.
And that to me, that's why it's important how we conduct our events, is because it's you guys, and I know the expense for, a vendor to come to our lot. And let's say specifically, let's talk about Biketoberfest. It's a 5-day, if we stretch it, it's a 5-day event.
Mm-hmm.
You coming from all the way out from the west, you guys are paying a lot of money to get out there between expenses and travel and everything you have to do to be there. We know you're not going to walk out of there saying, hey, we made a profit while we're here.
So that being said, one of the nice things about coming down to Florida in the mornings, and hopefully we get back to that this year, is we get to actually have 15, 20-minute, half an hour training sessions with the entire staff, where those of us that come down, like you say, yeah, it's incredibly expensive. So we try to get everything we can out of it, not because we're greedy, but because we have to pay so we can come back in the fall or in the spring, right? But to have the ability to meet up with these guys, it not only gives all of your employees the education, but we become friends and we want to work with each other, right?
Yep, it's just there again. It all comes back to the camaraderie. When I worked with General Motors, one of the things that I'd never saw that I get to see here. Well, the automotive industry has been so old and been around so long that the namesakes in the companies pretty much are all gone. I mean, there's a few guys out there, but who is Holly? We don't know. He's probably died 50 years ago. Don't know.
Sure.
But in the motorcycle business, I mean, we recently lost Arlen Ness, but we still have Corey Ness. We still have Brian Clock. We still have Craig Johnson. We still have the pioneers and the guys who this is their brand, out there promoting their brand. Cobra Exhaust. I mean, whenever Tim McCool, one of the most meek and mild guys, walks into your store, and people say, well, who's this gentleman? Well, this is the man who started Cobra Exhaust. This is his company. And to find out who he is and the story there, you don't get that in a lot of industries. Like, that's what excites me about Bike Week. Whenever you find out that Willie Davidson was just shopping in your store, we even have that from a Harley Davidson standpoint. The namesakes are still active in the business and still care.
And real people, and probably rode a motorcycle to the event.
Yeah. Exactly.
To talk about this event, we've talked about who's there, and like you said, yeah, the owners of companies, everybody's still there, or actually shows up. We are at the event helping. We want to meet and hang out with the customers and all of our friends in the industry. How long in advance, like I know for you and I, how long we are in communication talking about this event? I don't know that everybody knows that, because people that attend these, they come, there's a big event, and they go home and the event is over. But give us a little timeline of how this happens behind the scenes.
Well, I want to talk about in a perfect world, not a COVID world.
Yep.
In a perfect world, we would like to inventory moving, let's say for March, try to get that moving as early as in December. We'll bring in, just to support the store during an event, we'll bring in close to $2 million worth of product just to try to make it through a 10-day period. That takes a lot of time and effort to get the orders done, to get the product in, to get everything located in the right spot. So a bike week, usually it's about a 4-month process to get it set up. And it's really the same for Biketoberfest. Just because one's a longer event and one's a shorter, the effort's still the same.
Sure.
So 8 months out of our year, we're focusing on a bike week or a Biketoberfest. The other 4 months of the year, we're trying to just get our stores just recovered, cleaned up, new product in, get vacations, get our team time off, some rest time. They don't get a lot of rest time.
Sure.
Yeah. So, it's an ongoing thing. And even then, in those 4 months when we're not doing the actual event planning, there is still event decisions being made. But I will say this, that usually whenever we come out of a bike week, I already have an idea who's going to be there for Biketoberfest. And when we come out of a Biketoberfest, I already have a good idea who's going to be back for bike week. We don't see a lot of change in the venue. We don't see a lot of change in who the vendors are. Outside of, during this whole COVID thing, we had to make some changes and some concessions. We know that it made it difficult for some vendors to travel based off whatever state they were in. We've been running into supply issues and shortages on product. But, the good thing is, our vendors, our manufacturers that we're working with, they try to reserve enough inventory to make sure that they can be able to attend with some product. It's tough, but it's getting a little bit better.
Yeah.
So
it has been a struggle, but I can tell you that in my shop, we're recording this, and it's the end of January. This show is going to come out on the 14th of February. So from now, it's 2 weeks till we hit the road,
right,
to come down and be there. Actually, it's less than that. But right now, I have all of the product for Bike Week ready to go.
And I think it was was it during Biketoberfest, you were calling me 2 weeks before saying, hey, can you look and see if you can find this in any of your warehouses?
This last year's been tough.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I have the working relationships with everybody, and I can say, hey, John, here's who's got it. I need you to go get it. And hopefully they were able to ship it, get it there in time. So I'm really thinking I got her down this time, but I hope I'm way short.
Well, we don't want you to be way short, but I think
short means we sold a lot.
Well, I think Biketoberfest too, you came off of one of the best Sturgis rallies you've had.
Yes.
So, I mean, kudos to you and your brand. I mean, between supply issues and record sales happening at the same time, I mean, that's just a double whammy. So
it is. And, fortunately we have, between our distributors, between our retailers, most importantly, our customers, we've been blessed to continue to grow like we have. And we're looking forward to this year the same. Just hopefully shipping can keep up. I can tell you, we got our largest order ever, and that's what I pulled your stuff out of. Our, again, largest order ever is currently sitting outside Long Beach again. And then after that, our largest order ever now, yes, each one's bigger, is on the water headed over. And next week we're going to place an even larger one. We're to be prepared. And I just hope shipping can get it to me fast enough. It's
Well,
not a
we'll
production
just,
issue with us. It's shipping
yeah,
at this point.
right. So, well, I look forward to it. I'm excited. I think we're going to have all the indications right now indicate that this will probably be another record-setting event between our location at J&P Cycles, the Rossmeyers at Destination Daytona. There's a fantastic gentleman named Terry Reimer who now is really doing a great job of pulling in some of the biggest and best vendors to this area. And I like working with Terry. It seems like all the manufacturers like working with Terry. So being that our location is going to be where it's going to happen. I mean, it's always been known as the place to come and see the newest and latest and greatest, but now it's going to be the most, which we haven't always had that.
It's kind of ridiculous let's talk about your location, because we're not in Daytona. It's Daytona Bike Week, but all of our stuff is merging up to where you're at. So tell us where we're at off of 95 and how far north of Daytona and exit number and how to get there.
It's exit 273. It's 2 exits before you get to Daytona. It's only about a 10-minute drive into Daytona from where we are. And the reason why we're not in Daytona is because years ago, when Bruce Rossmeyer had his Harley dealership in Daytona, there was evidently, and this is before my time and I can only go by the stories, but there was just a lot of beef sometimes between the city of Daytona and the event. And that was when the decision was made, let's move out to I-95 and US 1 and build our own event location, which is what Bruce Rossmeyer did. And so you got to keep in mind, this whole location was built with Bike Week in mind. You can't say that about too many places. This is one of the few places they said, we're going to build this for this reason. And that's why it has become such a huge attraction during Bike Week. So we're not known for the biggest party and the loudest bands. It's where you come to product the latest and greatest and talk to the manufacturers directly. And so it's worked out well for us. And when John Parham made the decision to partner or build next door to that dealership and become part of this, it was the best thing that could have happened for us and for our customer.
It's great. And then talking about the event and the vendors and manufacturers and everything, you're not only meeting and talking and buying the stuff, it's installed for you right there if you want it, and you ship everything home. So
Absolutely.
If a guy wants new pipes, like I may have been guilty of hauling my dad's bike down for, they'll put them on. They'll reprogram the computer, and then you guys ship the pipes home if I needed them to.
Yep.
It's great.
So it's a win-win, but keep in mind, we're a shipping company. So right. if we're going to ship you a part, for talk. So and you are right, you are getting it installed. Not are you only on most product, you're getting it installed by the manufacturer, by the guys who designed it, who engineered it, who out that product, whether it be your handlebars, your exhaust, your lighting. So
yeah, it's really fun. It's fun to see. It's great to see people's faces when they get their bikes back and they're all now custom like they want it to be. It's awesome. I say every day, I'm the luckiest man alive to get to live this life.
Yep.
I'm not I don't have the most money, but I'm the luckiest one.
Well, I'm so happy.
Yep. Is there anything I missed?
Craig, I think you got it all, man. There's not
a lot of you want to talk about extra?
No, I don't know. I could sit here and talk like this all day, but we're going to sit here and just bore people to death because I mean, and I'm going to see you here in a few weeks, and we're going to sit here and catch up on stuff that retell the same stories. Those guys are incredible. My team. Yep. My assistant managers. My sales supervisors and leads, and these guys, I don't have to give them a lot of direction. They just know what to do. They pick it up and they run with it. This year's been a little tough. We've been fortunate enough to see some wonderful people in our company enjoy the chance to retire. which is kind of, some of those have been key players. Now we just got to get in step with some of the new people who are, they're not really new people. They're just new in a new role, but, picking up some of those challenges. And so, but once we get everything smoothed back out, it'll be like a clock, Swiss clock again. And there again, I'm glad the fact that you're going to come back down and you're not going to see a lot of new faces. You're going to see the same team. You're going to see the same people. And we're going to be ready.
Yeah, definitely one of our favorite events. So we got 5 questions for you. Since you haven't listened, and we got to end on those.
Okay.
It's awesome because you don't know what they are, which means we get real responses. Okay. So the first question, and they may just be statements, but the first question is, tell me something that you believe. So a belief that you have, something you believe that other people think is insane.
Oh, wow. Well, I do believe that I live in one of the most wonderful states in the United States. And despite what anybody's ever heard on television or the news or anything else, we are so far ahead of the world when it comes to our everyday quality of life.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a good one. Let's see. And there's no wrong ones, by the way. Okay, so the next thing, this could be an investment of time, money, energy, or any other resources. What is the best or most worthwhile investment you have made when it comes to your world on 2 wheels?
Oh, wow. The best investment I have ever made. I would have to say probably a good, comfortable seat. I would have to say good glasses. Help me see at night. Yeah. So I can
the vision's
see.
more important than the seat. If you can't see, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I tell you what, upgrading the lighting on my bike, I think has been the best investment I've ever made.
Okay.
Upgrading my lighting. It makes me more visible, but it makes me more comfortable to ride at night because I can see better at night.
Okay. Number 3, what is the worst advice that you see or hear being dispensed in your world?
You know what? I think where people are making the biggest mistakes is they're trying to do too much of their own research by watching things like YouTube and going to Google to try to get answers instead of just calling somebody and talking to a professional. Every day we see guys coming in spending a lot of money trying to undo. Don't be cheap. Doesn't mean you need to go spend a ton of money on stuff you don't need, but I just see so many people want to make changes to their motorcycles. They want to make changes to because they think they know what they need based off of what their buddies have told them. But that.
Yeah. Okay. For the listeners, do you have any requests of the audience?
The only thing I would ever request from the audience is, regardless of what anybody's ever said or your experience, I mean, don't be afraid to try something yourself. Just because it doesn't work for one person doesn't mean it won't work for you. Just because another person had a bad experience doesn't mean it's going to be a bad experience for you. But yeah, if you're thinking about being in the motorcycle world or riding or working or anything around the motorcycle industry, if it's something you want to do it. Whenever I got into the motorcycle business, I didn't know, and I'm glad I didn't, because if I would have listened to the people that I've met, some of the old school guys that we won't even talk about, they're not even around. They just they talk about all the regret. I do it right.
Make sure you do it the right way.
You're on Facebook, right? Want people to send you friend requests, try to follow you there?
Yeah, probably the best thing to do is because my personal Facebook is really truly more for true friends and family. But
sure,
Cycles at
Destination Daytona. Follow us there. That usually will give you the most up-to-date information on what's going on with J&P Cycles in Daytona. We also have J&P Cycles, our corporate. They're always doing things that are global or across the country, up to speed on.
But yeah,
that's what I
Facebook
board. I'm not wild.
on Crotts.
Go to work, eat dinner, go.
Oh, that's funny. No, that's cool. So I am going to I'm going to try to clean this up. We had some it's just, people listening, if you've made it this long, thank you so much for listening to this. There's been some glitches, and I think you had said the weather was maybe getting sketchy. So cell service may have been a little messed up, but I think we got the point. I think it was good. I had a good time. I even learned a few things, which is cool. I really, really appreciate you coming on. It's like starting in sales, right? Starting this podcast, just call my friends who's willing to fail with me and let's give it a shot. And I appreciate you for being one of my guinea pigs.
Craig, if you need anything, just let me know.
Just like that, it glitched on you. I'm sorry.
So say that again.
Anything. No.
Oh, I can't stop laughing because this is glitching right perfectly when you try to say anything. But I got it. Anytime I need anything, I'll give you a call. I appreciate it. Do you have any last parting words before we shut this down?
No, sir. Just looking forward to seeing you guys, and be safe.
All right. Thank you very much, John. You guys, all of you listening, thank you so much. If there's any guests you want to see me connect with, just shoot me a message. Let me know. If you're liking the show, smash that subscribe button. Make sure you follow it and you never miss an episode. Thank you, John. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Bye.
All right. Bye.